everyone, and welcome back to Venus Pages. Today we're talking about the poem The Flea by John Donne. As usual, let's start with a quick summary and then move on to the line-by-line analysis. Given that Donne lived through the plague years, he likely would have seen fleas everywhere, and perhaps, just maybe, this poem was inspired by that. Who knew fleas could be used in romantic poems? Well, likely they weren't, because probably this was written not actually to cajole yet another woman into Donne's bed. That was probably part of the persona he was carefully cultivating with his friends, but as an intellectual exercise. Poems would have been read out loud to share within intimate circles, to their friends, the woman he loves, as a way to amuse her, but not really to be published, or really they were just written for oneself and only published posthumously. So this poem was probably an intellectual exercise, because I'm not sure how well it would have worked for you to tell a woman that you're trying to get to sleep with you that, oh, well, why not sleep with me because we're already married by the flea that bit you and me. Because that, after all, is the central conceit in the poem. John wouldn't be a metaphysical poet, the metaphysical poet, without his use of conceits. So the flea is small and powerless before the world, and likewise he's saying that what you're denying me, your virginity, your maidenhood, is likewise small and insignificant before the grander scheme of things. My love for you. But he could also be simultaneously poking fun at himself, because he here is himself, like the fly, a pest that plagues the woman, a criticism of the men who weren't joking around, but were seriously, endlessly pestering and nagging women, not realizing the societal expectations and implications that women had and would have suffered through if they actually did end up sleeping with them. Essentially, this whole poem is an attempt to persuade a woman to have amorous relationships with him through the flea. The argument is actually created in 3 parts, the famous 3-part argument speech structure that Donne likely would have gone through in law school, and it does not end well for the flea. Spoiler alert, it ends up very much dead, suggesting to all the people who have criticized this poem as misogynistic before, I genuinely do not think it is, that really again, the woman is very much in power, and again, the man ends up very, very dead. Very much dead, in fact, because the flea is mercilessly destroyed. So it's interesting to consider the reversal of gender roles, and I really would not rush to say that it's misogynistic, or at least in any way more scandalous than all the other poems we've covered on the curriculum so far. The structure is mostly iambic pentameter with the occasional tetrameter, and sometimes he adds 2 stressed syllables, a spondi, to emphasize certain words, which adds a certain emotion to this already light-hearted poem. But we'll see this in more detail in a second. Mark but this flea, and mark in this, how little that which thou deniest me is. It sucked me first, and now sucks thee, and in this flea our 2 bloods mingled be. Thou know'st that this cannot be said a sin, nor shame, nor loss of maidenhead, yet this enjoys before it woo, and pampered swells with 1 blood made of 2, and this, alas, is more than we would do. We begin in medias res, with right in the middle of the argument with the attention-grabbing verb mark. Listen, notice, pay attention. It's almost like they're already within the argument and Donne just suddenly stops talking and says, wait, let's calm down a second, let's take a step back. Listen to me. Look at this fly. Mark how little it is. Notice how small it is. He draws the comparison to what she denies him, her virginity. He's saying, your maidenhood, it's not that big a deal. Your honor, it's like this flea, tiny and insignificant. Isn't our love bigger than that? And a dirty fact about Donne, it's interesting that in the first publication of this, because this was actually published, the letters S were elongated and made to look like F. I'll let you think what that makes when we turn sucks into another word. So that does tell you all that you need to know about Donne right there. In other words, it's a quite deliberate and naughty message from Donne that this fly certainly did more than just suck your blood. But beyond this double entendre, the main idea, the main conceit here is this idea that in this flea our two loves mingled be. Our blood joins together to make a microcosm. We are already together. It's almost like we've slept together already, so what's stopping you from sleeping with me now is what Donne is saying here. I would say that it's quite a thin argument. It does not seem good to say, Your Honor, we've already half slept together through this fly, but I think that it's meant to be taken this way. It's meant to be a light-hearted argument that the persona of the speaker is having with this woman, and it's meant to entertain, to amuse her, to maybe soften her up, and maybe eventually be successful. He continues his argument to say, oh, don't tell me that it's a sin, that it's a shame, all of the very valid things that a woman would have felt because society kept telling her that her most precious asset is her virginity. So he's saying to her that all of this, it's irrelevant. It's simply a flea. It has already bitten us and our bloods mingled be. Our bloods have been swirled around together. We have exchanged our very essence, our very soul. And yet we have not committed any sin. It's not because of us. We didn't ask the flea to bite us, and yet the sin has been committed, so we might as well go ahead with it. Yet this enjoys before it woo. Woo as in seduce, charm, pampered. So this fly is already pampered, spoiled. This flea didn't even have to do anything. And yet here I am trying my very best to charm you, begging you, and yet the flea is being pampered. The flea is luckier than I am. Pampered also does highlight that he views this woman as like the ultimate goddess, because to drink her blood is to be spoiled. This flea is enjoying the carnal pleasures that you don't afford to me. This fly could be us. And swell could also be in the sense of pregnancy, so you could interpret this in the sense that he's actually promising her, don't worry, we can have our fun, I won't get you pregnant, but also in the sense of swell, of course, like male virility. I am swelling for you, like this fly has swollen for you, so please just put me out of my misery. This is a rather irregular stanza in terms of the line lengths. There are quite a few enjambments, highlighting that Donne is very much playing with word and form here, that he doesn't mean this seriously, it lacks formality, it's definitely more for entertainment. I think he fully acknowledges the absurdity of this argument. Oh stay, 3 lives and 1 flea spare, where we almost, yeah, more than married are. This flea is you and I, and this our marriage bed and marriage temple is, though parents grudge and you were met and cloistered in these living walls of jet, though use make you apt to kill me, let not to that self-murder added be, and sacrilege, 3 sins in killing 3. Oh stay. Again, conversational. Stay your hand. Pull away your hand. 3 lives and 1 flea spare. So the story progresses that this woman goes, oh, like, off with you, Donne, and she tries to kill the flea, to squish it with her thumb, and he says, stay, like, please hold your hand. Please, darling, give it a chance. It's insignificant, but in it there are 3 lives. You, me, and us. Mic drop. The flea, he says, is the place where we married, nay, where we more than married, where we went beyond marriage, where we didn't save ourselves before marriage, where we married and we stopped saving ourselves. Get it? Come on. He's saying that you and I are united in its body. Its body is the marriage bed, the marriage temple, an allusion to religious imagery. So the flea is like the temple, like the place of worship, because we worship our love. Again, the idea of the microcosm, the creation of a world within a world. We've created our own world within this flea. And he acknowledges that her parents are complaining. He complains too. He says that although parents grudge, parents may complain, you complain too, but we're molded together. You have to acknowledge that we've already done this. We've already done this inside the flea. Though you may want to kill me, let's not add to that sin of suicide, to that crime of suicide and sacrilege because it's our place of worship. It's almost like we are gods and you're killing God. 3 sins and killing 3. Let's not add to your potential crime of wanting to kill yourself because your blood is there, the crime of killing 3 at once from you, me, and us. And contextually, it's interesting to consider that Donne's views on suicide were fascinating because he was a Catholic. He grew up as a Catholic, he was raised as a Catholic, so martyrdom had an interesting place in his life given that Catholics were heavily persecuted, but at the same time suicide was viewed as a sin. So it's a very fine line between martyrdom and suicide, and in fact he later wrote a work whose name I cannot pronounce. I think it's the Biethanatos, that was basically a treatise in the defense of suicide, which he did not want to publish because he recognized that that would be signing his own death warrant, ironically. So he ended up giving it to a trusted friend who didn't publish it but did keep it safe like he promised Donne, which is why it survived until today. So this is likely a nod to him and his theological doubts too. Cruel and sudden hast thou since purpled thy nail in blood of innocence, wherein could this flea guilty be, except in that drop which it sucked from thee? Yet thou triumphst and say'st that thou find'st not thyself nor me the weaker now. 'Tis true, then learn how false fears be. Just so much honour when thou yield'st to me will waste as this flea's death took life from thee. Him imploring the lady is then taken a step further in this final stanza. She ignores him, she commits the murder, she kills the flea. It's shown here that he has no control over this woman, no control over their relationship. Ultimately, she's the one making all the decisions. And he's left to compare himself and make comparisons to fleas. So again, who's really in control of this relationship? Cruel and sudden. It's the way he describes the death of the flea. You've purpled your nail. So you've got the blood of the flea, you've got our blood on your nail, you've got the blood of innocence. I innocently loved you. We were innocently made to love together inside this flea, and yet you killed me. It's a hyperbolic or rhetorical question. He obviously exaggerates. Her nail doesn't become utterly stained with purple, but also, why destroy this fly? When you erased it with a simple rush of your fingernail, did it please you? Did it triumph? Where was this flea guilty except in sucking our blood, except in wanting us to love? You destroyed it. All it did was drink your blood, even lie with you, and yet you destroyed it. What's stopping you from doing the same to me? What's stopping you from doing the same to our relationship? But then he builds it up. He's saying, yes, you triumphed. Yes, you won. So you're not so weak. So you're not so weak as this fly. So your fears are false. You will conquer whatever accusations are thrown at you. You're not weak, neither am I. Your fears are false, so let's just experience the joys of physical pleasure. You will waste as much honor when you lie with me as this flea's death took from you. The last two rhymes are me and thee, in a final structural effort to tie up the thought of why not sleep with me, you've done it already, and even when you killed the thought, it didn't take much from you, just like this is not going to take much effort from you. But it also references the popular Carpe Diem poems, the Seize the Day poems, this idea that life is short, memento mori, remember death, so seize life for what it is, because you might just end up like that flea, crushed by someone's nail. The flea acts as a reminder of death and life, that we're all mortal. It's urging us to seize life, so likewise, seize the day and come with me. So the flea is quite a fascinating poem. Interesting to examine this witty image of a louse as something insignificant to something so marvelous and powerful and emblematic. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe, like, stay on this channel, and I will see you soon.